is Off Script with Trish Glose, intimate interviews with interesting people. In front of my microphone today is Dr. Peter Adesman. Hello, Doc.
Hi. Thank you.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
So you're not only a doctor, but a lot of people in this area know you as the Mr. Wine Guy.
I am, yes. And in fact, this is a new venture for me. We now have our own label out there called Peter William Wines.
I know. We're going to talk about both. We're going to talk about you being a doctor. We're going to talk about your wine. We're going to talk about all of that. But first, where are you from originally?
I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Before it was cool to be from Brooklyn, New York. Now it's like the coolest place in the world and incredibly expensive. In fact, my son lived there for a summer and spent $3,000. Well, he was one of three people staying in a loft for $3,000 looking over a garbage dump.
Okay.
So it wasn't like that then, and it was a great place to grow up. I was never jealous of my cousins that lived on Long Island and had a house with a yard. We could ride our bicycle everywhere and see every friend. And
awesome.
It was great.
So being from Brooklyn then was cool, but just you're saying it's not as cool as being from Brooklyn now.
Right. I mean, it was cool. I got to see a lot of great concerts.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go to the Fillmore East. I got to see Jimi Hendrix. I got a chance to see Janis Joplin. I got a chance to do a lot of things that I couldn't have done outside of being in a city.
Just because you lived in Brooklyn.
Because I lived in Brooklyn, yeah.
Awesome. So what was family life like for you then? Did you grow up with siblings?
I have two brothers, and I was the oldest, so I was kind of the trailblazer.
That explains a lot.
And I would say I was a handful.
How so?
Because I have a little ADD, HD. And
you don't say.
And now my wife calls me OCD, so I think I've got every initial attached to me.
Okay.
But, I was a very active kid. In fact, most of my parents' friends thought I was the poster child for Planned Parenthood. They'd see me climbing trees, running around like crazy. And they go, no, we don't want another kid. It could turn out like Peter.
Okay. So your two younger brothers, did you guys get along?
Yeah, we actually got along. I wouldn't say we were that close growing up, but we're closer now, and they're both physicians on the East Coast.
Wow.
Yeah.
A family. Well, what did your mom and dad do?
Well, my dad was a physician,
Okay.
so we grew up with the idea that we can be any kind of physician we wanted to.
Okay.
I mean, it was like it was the family business practically. My mom was a teacher and administrator. She actually worked as a director of admissions for a college in New York.
Okay.
So.
All right. And so dad was a doctor. So did you guys grow up thinking we want to be doctors too, or just?
No, actually, I kind of fell into it more than anything. In fact, I went to pre-med. I wasn't happy with pre-med. I dropped out of pre-med, and we had this life-changing event. We went to the Greenbrier. This was like the Greenbrier is a wonderful hotel in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, and we had a meeting there. My brothers were there, my parents were there, and they said, so what are you going to do with your life? And I said, well, I'm going to become a psychologist. And my dad said, well, if you're going to do that, become a psychiatrist. You can prescribe medicines, and there's more open, still going towards medicine,
Sure.
medicine. So I said, okay, I'm going to be a psychiatrist. And then I did my psych rotation, and I found out, well, these people are crazy. No, I mean, I actually fell in love with other things going into it.
True.
And so psychiatry sort of drove me into medical school, but I came out with other thoughts.
Okay. So let's go back to living in Brooklyn. What decade is this?
Okay, so I grew up 50s, 60s, and I left Brooklyn in 1971 to go to college.
It's a good era.
It was great. I mean, it was fantastic. Literally, I could go anywhere. There were areas in Brooklyn you just wouldn't go to because they weren't really safe, but I knew what they were. You just don't go there. I mean,
exactly.
One of the kids in my high school was killed in an area he shouldn't have been in.
Yikes.
Yeah, so that, these days people, know better than to go to those areas, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I'm assuming you've been back.
Oh, yeah. I still go back to New York. Both of my parents are no longer with us, but I have a brother that lives on Long Island. I'll be going back to celebrate my 65th birthday. I know you don't think I look that old.
I don't.
Thank you very
65,
much. 65?
what?
Yeah, thank you.
Don't believe it.
So I'm going back to celebrate my 65th birthday in New York with friends in New York, family in New York, and my brothers will be there. So it'll be a lot of fun.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so I go to New York from time to time. Not as often as when my parents were alive.
Did your parents live there up until they passed?
They moved from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and I don't think my mother could have lived in a city that didn't have a dozen museums open on any given day. She was big into arts and museums, and they went to the Philharmonic Hall. They had, Met tickets. They had everything. They were big arts people.
Isn't it interesting, I guess, not funny or interesting really, but what your parents are into when you're that age, how that influences what you are into at a later age?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still interested in music and theater. There was a time in high school that I had seen every play that was in the theater directory in the New York Times. So I'd go. There wasn't a lot going on in high school, so I was going to concerts and going to the theater, and you could get, if nothing else, standing room or student ticket prices that were cheap, and I saw all these things on Broadway. It's
I
very
think
cool.
too later in life it's almost like we're paying a little homage to our folks in a way.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. People say you become your parents over time.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. I am
Frightening but true. Right?
Yeah, and my mom is fantastic, and I am turning into her, which is a good thing because she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. So concerts, you went to a lot of concerts. Was there one that really stuck out for you?
Oh my goodness, yeah. I was at a summer camp, and we wanted to go to Woodstock, and I was a counselor in training at the summer camp. And so the director, and this was a hippie camp, so this was an artsy camp. It really was. This was
cool.
They
like
had
it.
very little sports. It was really artsy. They had just a bunch of hippies.
That's my kind of camp.
It was a wonderful camp. There were no counselors in camper bunks and no campers in counselor bunks, so you were on your own, which in summer camp in those days was a big thing.
Cool.
Anyway, so we wanted to go to Woodstock, so we talked to our CIT counselor in training Trip. And they basically said, no, I don't think you're going to send your kids to Woodstock, not knowing exactly what Woodstock was going to be like. They had the sense to say, no, we're just not sending you there. So instead, they said, we can go to Tanglewood, and they had Phil Maurice at Tanglewood. Now, Tanglewood is like our Brit, but a little bit bigger, like Ravinia in Chicago.
Okay.
Outdoor music festival, mostly classical, but now they have contemporary, as all the classical music venues do. And they had the Phil Maurice there. Well, the opening act was B.B. King. The main act was Jefferson Airplane.
Wow.
But the middle act was The Who doing Tommy from start to finish. And they blew. I mean, people were happy to see Jefferson Airplane, but after The Who, it's still one of the greatest concerts.
Amazing. So you didn't go to Woodstock, but
I didn't go to Woodstock, unfortunately. Got to go to a great it was a consolation prize, but it was pretty good.
Awesome. And I know you and your wife, Robin, are huge. I mean, you go to every Brit show.
We go to a lot of Brit shows.
Yeah.
And still into music, still into theater to a lesser degree because it's just not here as much. I went to an amazing show in Chicago, another great show. The opening act of the show, this was a WXRT, I guess it's a radio station that's still there, but they had these budget new emerging artist concerts. And the two acts, the opening act was Elvis Costello, and Tom Petty was the main act. Now, it was $3 to get in.
Shut up.
And the first 100 people that had red shoes got in for nothing.
Red shoes?
Yes, because the Angel Wants to Wear My Red Shoes, one
right,
of the Elvis
right.
songs. So I didn't have any red shoes. I wasn't going to go out and buy them since it was only a $3 ticket. So it was
That's
a very,
crazy.
very cool concert. And believe it or not, Elvis blew away Tom Petty. And I hate to say it now that Tom Petty's no longer with us.
Yeah.
Great show, but Elvis was amazing at that time.
Well, and I don't know if you've read, it was just in the news the other day, Tom Petty, a lot of his music that he created before he died is now being released.
Right, exactly.
So he's living on.
And it's just
amazing.
the 1 year anniversary, I think, of
Exactly.
his death the other day.
Yeah, just like maybe last month was his
Yeah.
1 year anniversary of his passing. So
I didn't know that I guess he lived somewhat of a troubled life. I mean, everything seems so glamorous when you're in rock and roll. And
I guess.
But it's not always as easy.
yeah, I think we look at them as, these amazing stars, and they're on stage and they're perfect and they're famous and they're rich, and they're just as screwed up as the rest of us.
Right. Maybe more so.
Maybe more so.
We're still here.
Yeah. Good point. I like that. So you went to university came first.
So I went to Northwestern. That brought me to Chicago.
Okay.
And I ended up staying there for medical school and went to the University of Illinois, partly because I had a girlfriend I wanted to stay in Chicago. That was probably the major. I applied early decision, so I got in October 1st. Actually, October 2nd was when the letter came, so I had the rest of the year off to play.
Nice.
That was good.
Who was this girlfriend?
Oh, it didn't last. I mean, it was a girlfriend, Judy, that ended shortly after going to medical school. Partly because when you're in medical school, you do not have time for a relationship. First year of medical school, you're in a relationship with books.
When did you?
That's it.
True, yeah.
You want to go out? No, I want to go read this biology book. Not really, but you have to.
But you have to if you want to succeed. When did you meet Robin?
So Robin and I met in medical school.
Because she went to University of Illinois too.
Yes, she did. So I stayed in Illinois, and we went there. And her roommate and one of her best friends was my cadaver partner. And and my cadaver had a great body. I mean, you never think about dead people having a great body, but no, it's not something you think about. But when you're trying to dissect out muscles, you don't want somebody who dies with cancer and cachexia and doesn't have any muscles to dissect. My guy was like Atlas. And, everybody wanted to be around our body.
Okay, so when you say, so your cadaver was a male.
Our cadaver was a male and well preserved.
So so my brain first went to, you had this like hot female dead person.
No, it was
That's
a male.
Where I was thinking.
No.
You were saying great body as
great
in
body
to
like,
dissect.
Well, to dissect, yes.
Okay.
Not a great, no. He died in the 60s, and no, it was not, there was nothing more than muscle dissection.
I hear you. So maybe you can answer this. You donate your body to science?
Yes.
Okay, and so for this particular guy to be a cadaver, he died in the 60s. Do they do some special preservation?
We died probably in the 70s, shortly before we used him, because I was in medical school in the 70s. And I don't know how the selection process, but it turned out that one of the cadavers in our group, because we had a very large class, was a known entity to some of the people there. And so that was kind of a medical faux pas. That was not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so someone knew one of the cadavers there. Usually they're not for local people. They're not people that you're going to know.
For sure.
And you don't get their names. You don't read about, what did they die of. They're just the body to dissect.
It's just for science.
And I don't know exactly whether they still do that in medical school. I'm so far removed. But
right.
It was a great experience, anatomy lab.
Do you know what they preserve the bodies in?
Like a formalin type thing.
Okay.
Because
you want to make sure. So when you cut, I'm fascinated. When you cut into this, they don't bleed.
No. There's
no blood.
No blood.
You're really just going in there to see where everything is.
Yeah, exactly. There's no blood, and you're just learning about. You have a full year of anatomy, and you just go through, section by section, what organs and what muscles and.
Was there anything in this class that surprised you when you started cutting into this human?
No, not really. I mean, it was kind of a fun class, and as I said, we had one of the best cadavers. So for us, it was really good. It's really hard for people that have trying to dissect out muscles when they're just cachectic and there's nothing left.
Okay, so I guess what makes a good cadaver body?
Yeah, just well preserved. That is, they didn't die cachectic. 99 pounds and 6'2". So that there's no muscle mass, no anything to dissect out.
Okay.
That's always a problem.
Are you removing organs from the body, or?
No, we were not removing them from the body, but just, opening up the body and seeing and taking wedges and, things like that. Mm-hmm. No.
The brain too?
The brain, that's a good question. I don't remember what we did about the brain. I'm not sure we did the brain. I don't think so. I'll have to ask Robin. Maybe she remembers that.
We'll have to ask Dr. Robin Miller.
Dr. Robin, yes.
Because did she take a class similar?
Yeah, we were in the same class. We had a very large class. So I'll tell you something.
I know we got stuck on dead bodies.
Okay, so I'll tell you something I don't know.
Okay. Before
I went out with Robin, I went out with Robin's sister. Okay, and before, wait, it gets even better. Okay. Before we went out, Robin went out with my roommate, Bob.
Oh, man.
And she set me up with her sister.
Robin set you up with her.
So we were friends.
Nice.
And it sort of developed into something else on a ski trip.
It's a good thing that it didn't work out with Judy or Robin's sister.
That's right. It wasn't going to work out with Robin's sister. I hope she's not listening to the show.
It's fine.
Probably not going to
It's fine. She's probably, I'm sure, happy that it's worked out for you and Robin.
Out, yeah.
So you guys are in the same anatomy class.
The same class all the way through.
Okay, and your cadaver partner...
well, it's her roommate. Yeah.
Was Robin's roommate.
It was alphabetical. So I had Altai, Albin. I mean, all the A's were on this body. Adesman. So it was all. And so she was actually in another room. Being an M, she was one room over.
Okay, so you guys are at the same university, the same time. You're even in the same classes.
Same classes.
Okay, so
and she used to come to our parties, but she didn't always appreciate our parties.
Why?
They could
Were they too wild?
They could get out of hand. Right? I mean, usually. Fortunately, police never came. Plus, we had a gang in the neighborhood, and she didn't like the gang presence.
No.
They were the brothers of Newport. It was a wonderful street. It's actually in Wrigleyville, so it's right a block and a half from Wrigley Stadium.
Awesome.
It was really cool, but it was a bit sketchy.
Well, Robin strikes me as the kind of woman and maybe girl at that time that just very nice,
She was very nice. She
sweet, and sometimes when it got a little crazy, she was like, I'm out of here.
Right, and much more studious than me.
Than you.
I have to be honest.
I love honesty.
She was definitely more studious.
Okay, so you guys go on a ski trip together.
Yes, we did.
Sparks fly.
Yes, and that was
the end.
That was, yeah.
Do you remember the year?
Yeah, sure. I ended up applying for a residency in Denver at the University of Colorado. Now, we didn't do well at the University of Colorado. For whatever reason, they didn't accept a lot of people from Illinois. So I thought, I don't want to go all the way out to Colorado from Chicago. We had to drive out. We didn't have any money in those days to fly. So I said, I'm going to go and ski if I'm going to go out there. At least if I'm not going to get accepted, I'm going to go ski. So I asked a couple of my roommates, and they said, no, we're not going. And then Robin said, I'll go. Yeah, I said to Robin. So we ended up going, and that was the beginning of the romance. So,
and when did you pop the question?
Many years later. That was 6 years later. On and off again. We were in different cities for a while.
Gotcha.
We didn't match together. So there's a match, which means after you get out of medical school and you're going into your internship residency, you apply for, what your choices are. And our relationship just started over the Christmas break.
Okay.
And January 1st was the match date. So we weren't committed to the relationship like,
for sure.
It was very young.
You just knew you liked each other.
Yeah, it was good. It was great. We had a wonderful trip. Not ready to commit to being necessarily being in the same place. So I got my first choice, which was Portland, University of Oregon.
Wow.
OHSU. And she got her first choice, which was George Washington University. So we were 3,000 miles apart. And then we said, all right, we're going to get together. So Robin had an interview with the chief of medicine at a bar in Washington. That went well. And she didn't even have to pay for the drinks. And
of course not.
And I went to Washington, D.C., and I interviewed with the guy. He goes, you could have come here last year. How come you? I said, well, I wanted to go to Portland, and now we're separated, so we're trying to figure out, well, you could have gone last year. You can come back this year if you want. But Robin came to Portland, and that was it. And we were in Portland together.
And that's when, is that when you guys were in Oregon and you stayed in Oregon?
For a while, and then Robin went to she ended up going to Johns Hopkins in Baltimore.
That's right.
And so she was in Baltimore for a couple of years, and we separated there, and then finally we got back together. But it was a process.
Yeah. Well, I think every great relationship is a process.
Yeah. And we were pretty mature at that time, and we felt good about it, and obviously it's lasted.
Well, what do you think about Portland?
I love Portland. I love Portland. We have differences as to whether or not we're going to end up in Portland down the road.
Next?
I love being here. I love, doing what I'm doing. I like being part of the wine industry, which I'm in now. But at some point in my life, I'll probably want an easier life than lugging cases around and selling bottles of wine.
Okay. So you got into your field of medicine, which is?
Gastroenterology.
Okay.
Guts and butts.
Guts and butts. Why did you want to get into guts and butts?
Well, when I went into internal medicine, at first I wanted to be a psychiatrist. I said, no, that's out. Then I wanted to be a hematologist, oncologist, because there was really a lot of good stuff going on. They were starting to cure cancer, which had never been done before. You had Hopkins disease and other things. But the most fun people were the GI people.
The guts and butts people.
Guts and butts people. And even though it deals with liver disease, they like to go out and eat and drink. So I thought, I can do that. I am qualified to be a gastroenterologist. I mean, they like to go out and have a good time, and it's a fun department. And it's really who you meet more than anything. I mean, I had a terrible surgical rotation in medical school. And it was abusive, and I said, I don't want to do that. If I had a great rotation, maybe I'd be a surgeon now. Who knows?
We were talking before the podcast, probably two things that very few people know about me. I've had two major surgeries in my life. One when I was 8 that had to do with my appendix.
Right.
My appendix burst, and I was just hanging out for like 2 months with this burst appendix. And then when I was 14, my sigmoid colon twisted.
Oh, so you had, sigmoid volvulus.
So they think from that first surgery the sigmoid colon had like stretched out and it was wrapped around it was like 2 feet long when it's normally supposed to be, what, 10 inches, 8 to 10 inches?
Well, it could be about a foot or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine was huge.
Right.
And it wrapped around all these, all my internal organs, and then finally just had twisted. It would twist over the years, and then finally it just twisted, and they had to go in and take the whole thing out.
Yeah, it's called a volvulus. And sigmoid volvulus is not uncommon, and if it happens repeatedly, then you need to get it out. If it happens once, then what we do as gastroenterologists is we'll go in there and put a scope up there and take the twist out. But a lot of times after we do that, a week later, it goes right back to a twisted state, and then you just have to get it out.
And I was 14 years old, and my doctor, my guts and butts doctor, loved me because I was his only patient under,
usually
70.
Yeah, usually sigmoid volvulus occurs in older people. You have 2 types of volvulus, and that occurs, it's not uncommon, but we probably straighten one out every year or so individually, so maybe 5 or 6 times a year for the group.
So that's something that no one really knows about me, and I'm
sharing
it with you.
Thank you.
With you on this silly podcast.
I can put in a medical bill now? I've taken the history. All I need to do is a brief physical exam, and we're there. We've got to,
I'll have my people contact your people for that bill.
Yeah.
So you're working, Robin's working, you guys get together. When did you finally get married?
We got married in 1985 in Chicago.
In Chicago.
At the Drake Hotel, which is have you been to Chicago? It's
no.
It's the first building on Michigan Avenue. So when you go Lakeshore Drive, it's the first building.
It's a fancy hotel.
It's the Plaza Hotel of Chicago. It's the Old World Hotel. It was really cool.
Awesome. And then from there?
So from there, that was in 1985. I went to practice on Long Island. So I was in Long Island for 6 years. Robin came to Long Island as well, and she was at Stony Brook. So she was an academic physician at the University in Stony Brook. Okay.
And then at some point, you guys both just say, we need something different.
Kids. Yeah, we had kids, and we said, if you have kids, you can't just go into the city all the time. I mean, in the first couple of years before we had kids, because we didn't have kids till 87, we had 2 years of just playing in the city. And so we had enough money to go in there and play and go to shows and do whatever. But after you have kids, you say, I'm not going into the city that often, so do I really need to live or outside in that area? Robin was less thrilled with Long Island. Her family wasn't there, mine was. And so we basically decided to come back to Oregon. We tried to figure out where would we like to go, and we really loved Oregon. So
and Southern Oregon.
And so Robin actually did a rotation here in 1980.
I remember that story.
In 1980. So, and at that time, she wasn't ready to sign up as one of the few female physicians here in that time frame, but she loved being here, and they offered her a job right then and there. Said, when you're finished, come down here.
Of course they did.
Years later, and everybody loved her, and years later, we did come. And ended up working in the Medford Clinic because we knew people there, but of course the clinic fell apart, and everybody landed well, and things are good.
So getting to the wine part of your life, have you always been sort of I don't want to say a drinker because that has like a negative connotation, but have you always been a guy who's loved wine and beverages and good food? And
well, I have to say that if you go back to college, I was drinking Yago Sangria. So that's something very few people
Yummy.
know. Yeah. Well, it was sweet and it was cheap, and it was a step above Ripple and all the rest of the crummy wines that college kids drink, Annie Green Springs. So Yago, you put some fruit in it. It was the thing at the time. So it was actually what my parents drank wine. And if you go back to the 60s and early 70s, most Americans were not drinking wine. 60s were the age of cocktails, and rarely did people have wine with dinner. My parents did. And part of it is because they traveled a lot. They've been to Europe many times, and that's a very European thing.
Absolutely.
So they basically were wine people. And in terms of drinking wine, they never bought expensive wine. My father always found bargains, but some of them not so good bargains, but at least they never spent a lot of money. But my uncle did, and we went to Thanksgiving dinner there probably in the early 70s, somewhere about 73, 74, and he opened up 2 Bordeaux that were just unbelievable. And I thought, I didn't know wine can taste like this. This is like amazing stuff.
Isn't that crazy when your brain clicks on it like, I like wine?
Yeah, I mean, it was more than just a beverage. I mean, then it becomes an experience. And,
absolutely.
When you've tasted, and then from there I started buying wines A little bit in Chicago. They would have wine sales. And I didn't have a lot of money in medical school, but I was able to find some deals that were pretty good and start buying some Rieslings and white Burgundies and different things. But then after moving to Portland in '79, Portland had the wine industry.
For sure.
And I went down to Napa and Sonoma a couple of times, especially Napa. In those days, Napa was not like Napa today. It was just farm people rather than celebrity farming.
A little bit of saturation too.
It was really nice. And so I got into wine, and it's just become somewhere between a passion and obsession.
Yeah. Well, in Southern Oregon, a great place for that obsession.
It's remarkable. I did not think that we'd be able to make the wines that we're making. I will be honest and say, if you had asked me 20 years ago that we'd be where we are today, I'd say, I don't think so.
You or we the region?
We the region. We the region. They're exceeding my expectations. They're really, really, really good. Now, the thing that's always true in any wine region, there's better and lesser wines, but the really good wines are amazing, and I'm very proud of the job that people are doing here.
And especially,
and very supportive, by the way.
Oh my gosh, amazing how everybody really does support each other in this industry.
I mean, I just brought my wines that were made at another winery. In fact, these wines were made by Eric Weisinger over at the Barrel 42, and Herb Quaddy and Brian Gruber and Nicole, and they tasted and they said, wow, they're really wonderful. That's being very nice and kind to Eric that made the wine. So I think everybody supports everybody. And that's exactly the way it was in the Willamette Valley. If you look at some of the historical accounts, there have been some wonderful TV episodes on public broadcasting about the pioneers in the Willamette Valley, Dick Ponzi and Dick Erath and Fuller and I'm just trying to remember all the original people. They all got together to support, and Irie, forgetting his first name now, he just died a few years ago. Everybody got together to support each other. Everybody wanted everybody else to succeed because if everybody does better, it's good for the industry.
What's that? It's water.
Yeah, the rising tide.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, and I think people are like that now here. I think it's been an incredibly supportive industry. Okay.
So did you know at the time when you moved here, obviously there was a wine scene at that time, not what it is now. Did you go, I want to grow grapes, I want to make wine? When did that happen for you?
So when I moved here, there weren't even good wine glasses in restaurants.
Well, there in some restaurants there's still not good wine glasses.
And so one of the things I got from friends, like my first or second year here, was a Riedel wine glass carrier because I was bringing wine glasses to restaurants. And to this day, I still beat up restaurants that have really crummy wine glasses. And I say, well, do you care about food? And they say, yeah. I said, well, do you care about wine? Yeah. Then why would you serve your wine in these glasses? And so I still bring wine glasses to a few places, but most have actually pretty decent stemware these days. It's better than it was. And stemware has come down in price, so it's not that you have to buy $10 a stem. Restaurants can buy these for $4 or $5. And
did you ever get the eye roll, like, oh, it's this guy again, bringing in his own wine glasses?
And his own wine.
And his own wine.
I said, well, at least I didn't bring in my own food. I mean, I didn't carry out from another restaurant or whatever. So a little bit of that, but I think that just moved everybody into a better place.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of beating people up and saying you just need to improve your glassware. You need to step it up.
You're not afraid to do that.
No. I'm fairly vocal and opinionated. I think most people know that, and I'm okay with that. I mean, you don't have to like me. It's okay, but I'm here to make. I can tell you that there was a restaurant, and I won't name it, but it opened up, and I knew one of the guys that was working there in the wine area, and I said, that restaurant needs help. I said, here are 4 or 5 things you can do to make it better. And he came back to me, and his boss said, well, tell him to open his own restaurant. Now, that restaurant closed in 3 months.
Yikes.
And it deserved to. It had issues. It had, and when I do that, that's, a lot of times you shoot the messenger. That's not uncommon.
Yeah.
But these were all things that could have helped. That restaurant was probably doomed anyway.
Well, I feel like you and I are on the same school of thought here because I I love going out and having a great experience at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And good food and good wine and all of that. And so I would agree with you. Why wouldn't you say something? I want them to stick around.
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. And I do that hoping that they'll improve their game and stick around. I mean, we were at dinner at different tables last week, wonderful restaurant. Their glasses have improved. Actually, they bought really good glasses. Unfortunately, they broke in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
But at least they're working on it.
I was going to bring that up, actually. I saw you at a restaurant. We won't name it because for the most part, I want to be super positive about the places here in where I live.
And the food at that restaurant was really good,
The food at that restaurant is amazing. Wonderful. But the wine glasses, I'm sorry, suck.
Well, they did buy good glasses. In fact, if they're listening to this, they'll know exactly who they are. I said, Costco has these amazing Riedel glasses for under $3 a stem. Just go out and buy them. So they did. They actually bought 4 dozen.
Fantastic.
But they broke.
I didn't get those.
No, they didn't because they broke in the dishwasher. They didn't have cages. You can't wash delicate glasses and just stick them in a dishwasher.
Yeah.
Because commercial dishwashers shoot out really high.
Right.
You have to have a cage.
Right.
And they didn't have cages and they broke.
Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it was unfortunate.
Those glasses, you actually turned me on to those glasses at Costco.
Yeah.
They're like the Kirkland brand, but they're made by the Riedel company.
Exactly.
And we bought like 2 or 3 cases of them because they're fabulous.
Yeah, they're almost disposable at that price.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're beautiful Bordeaux glass. There's a plug for Costco.
We are not advocating. This is not a commercial for Costco.
This is not a commercial for Costco. But, I took advantage of it as well, thinking that someday, I mean, Robin gets upset when I buy glasses. I probably have about 200 plus wine glasses.
My husband gets upset when I buy glasses. And he's like, really? We needed those? Yes. We absolutely do. We absolutely need these.
Bordeaux glasses, Burgundy glasses. You have Pinot glasses that are different than the Burgundy glasses.
Bubbly glasses.
Oh, yeah. I've got them all.
And bubbly, I'm especially addicted. I like the long flute ones, and then I like the like bucket.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Right. They're kind of a tulip or a little bit. Yeah. But I like the long flutes. So you see those bubbles go up.
Me too.
Yeah, that's
Me too.
great.
See, we could have a whole extra podcast just on
and
glasses.
We're supposed to do dinner.
We are supposed to do dinner.
That's right.
Because
I now have it on a podcast. This is like going out to the public.
It's done because I already know what I'm going to make you guys, and you're going to bring over some great
Champagne.
Wine. Yes, we're going to have bubbly, and I'm going to do a little like Cipino.
Yes, that's perfect. And
okay.
I've got the wines for that.
I know you
Guaranteed.
do. You have the wines for a lot of things.
Yes.
So when did you decide I'm going to grow some grapes and I'm going to make my own wine?
So I guess it was about 5, 6, 7 years ago we decided that, I should say even before that, we had a small vineyard at our old house. We had 0.7 acres and we put in maybe a quarter of an acre of vineyard of 140 vines. And I thought, well, that was cool. And I probably should have stopped at that, but then we bought 10 acres, 14 acres actually, then expanded to 17 acres, and we have 10 acres of vineyard, 18,500 plants.
Wow.
A lot of plants, very dense planting. It looks really cool. And I just, I love the whole idea of being in the industry and creating wine, which is just bringing joy to people.
Well, you're so good at it. You really are good. You're a good wine drinker because you can break down what's good and what's not and what you should be tasting. And
although, and that's true because I've been doing this for so many years, but the truth is you just drink what you like. I mean, it's always amazing when we do the Oregon wine experience and we have multiple wines. The voting that we say, which is your favorite, it frequently comes down to a 50-50 vote where they're both really good wines.
Right.
And so, I always say if everybody liked the same thing, Baskin-Robbins would sell one flavor instead of 31 flavors.
Right.
So there's always something different.
So true.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, in one of the judges forums, you were there, maybe not this past year, but the year before, Tim Hanai, Master of Wine, said something so beautiful. He's like, don't knock people for wanting a dessert wine or something sweet, or because people drink what they like, and that's just what they're going to drink. And so why would we knock you for certain wines that you like?
Well, people always ask, you prefer red wine or white wine? I said, I don't discriminate based on color.
Exactly.
Why should you discriminate based on color?
I don't
either. Good wine is good wine. It's irrelevant whether it's red, white, or pink.
Yeah.
Wine is wine. It doesn't matter whether it's dry or sweet. I drink dry wine, I drink sweet wine.
I love them all.
If it's great wine, it's great wine. I mean, I don't actually grow some of the things that I like to drink because it wouldn't grow well. For example, I like Pinot, but we have a south-facing vineyard that's very hot. It bakes in the sun. And so Pinot wouldn't be good there. Riesling, which I love as a grape, wouldn't, whether it's dry or sweet, wouldn't grow there.
Okay.
It just wouldn't work well.
What are you growing?
We have, our largest part of the vineyard is Syrah, and it's doing really well. I put in a little plug for Peter Williams. Syrah is now out there, just delivered some to the first couple of shops today. And we grow Tempranillo, Malbec, and Grenache.
Okay.
And the Grenache is there mostly to blend with Syrah to create like a GSM, which is Grenache Syrah Mourvedre.
Peter Williams, what is that
Peter
from?
William Vineyard, my middle name, Peter William. So
Oh,
Peter, it
all
gonna
about
be,
Peter.
Well, it was going to be William Hardy, which
Okay.
is Robin's middle name, Hardy. And then I started Googling that, and I went, oh, Hardy's in Australia, which is a huge winery. It could be a 1 million case winery, huge. Is William Hardy. I just knew it as Hardy. And so once I saw it, I said, there's going to be a cease and desist.
Yeah, there would be a big old fat lawsuit and
there was an
headache.
attorney up in Portland. They said, don't bother.
Don't
Just stop,
bother.
Go. And then I thought, well, Peter Sellers.
I like
That
that.
would be great for those that remember Pink Panther and Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
There already is a winery, so I'm putting in a plug for somebody else's winery. So much for Peter Sellers.
So Peter William it is.
Peter William McBuchanan. And I didn't need my last name associated with it or anything else. It just, that was what we chose.
But I mean, it should sort of be all about you because this is sort of your vision.
It is. Well, it's my passion obsession.
Your passion
and
obsession.
And not Robin's per se. Although she enjoys drinking wine. She won't go on wine trips. I do that with the boys because we went on one and we went into too many places. And
Did it remind her of those college parties?
Oh no, it wasn't. She just was dragged into too many wine shops, too many tastings. She goes, I don't need to hear about fermentation one more time, and I don't care what kind of barrel they use. That doesn't matter. It can be French oak, Spanish oak, American oak. I don't care what it is. That's not for me.
That's funny. Well, at the last Judges Forum, you are a professional wine taster, meaning
I do a lot of it.
You do, but you had your own cup.
Spit cup.
Spit cup.
Yes, always.
Because if you're consuming all of this wine, you're at the end of the day.
Whenever I go to wine tasting like that, where there's going to be 30, 40, 50, 60 wines, Oregon Wine Experience. Actually, I tasted at least 50 or 60 wines at the big grand tasting, and I spit everything.
Yeah.
So where people were walking around a little bit sloshed, I was in perfect shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some more so than others.
Yeah. I mean, you can't taste it. You get palate fatigue no matter what happens.
Right.
But when you're drinking it, that fatigue comes a lot earlier.
Okay. And just quickly, speaking of Oregon Wine Experience, you actually teach a class within the Oregon Wine University.
I do. I do the Oregon versus the Old World. We've done it every year, even when it was up at Del Rio. I guess after it left Del Rio. And it's really good. It shows how far we've come as a wine industry. I make it so it's a fair fight. I try to get typical wines. For example, we grow Tempranillo, so I get a Spanish Tempranillo. And I be honest that I had the sommelier or the wine steward from Market of Choice with us, and he and I both thought the American, the one that was grown that included my fruit, was the Spanish wine, and the Spanish wine was the American. So we got it wrong.
Nice.
But that's how well we're doing.
I like it.
It's really cool.
Okay. We're going to wrap up a little bit, but where can people find your wine right now?
I am hoping everywhere, but right now, going out today, because it's there at Harry and David and Jacksonville Inn, and it'll be at Market of Choice. It'll be a slight delay, but it will be there. It will be in restaurants. In fact, right after this, I go to one of my favorite restaurants to taste them on it. But since they haven't committed, I won't mention it yet.
Okay.
But it will be in many, many restaurants that we have commitments. Also going to be the Ashland Wine Cellar. They made a commitment to it too.
And what are you drinking right now of yours that you're really liking?
I think that, it's interesting. I brought the wines to a restaurant the other night when we had a journal club for my group. And everybody preferred different things, which is typical.
Right.
I just brought it to Jacksonville Inn, and I think Platon there liked the Tempranillo. I think that right now is a little bit firmer, but it's bigger and richer, and it's got more layers. What's drinking incredibly well now is the Syrah. I think Brian Gruber at Barrel 42 really loved the Malbec and thought that was drinking well right now. So everybody's going to get something different. Everybody's sensitivity is to tannins, to acid, to different things are different. So
That's probably
Come
good.
taste them all.
Yes.
In fact, I recommend buying them all.
Buying them all.
Buying them all. Buy
Tasting.
3 bottles. One now,
Yes.
put them away for 3 years, and then 5 years down the road. They'll be
I love it.
magical.
I love that. And then my one last question before we get to my final 3 questions, which I
Yes.
apologize, I did not prep you on, I don't think, but
That's
you'll get
okay.
through it. You're smart. How long are you going to be doing guts and butts?
Another 4 years, probably.
Yeah?
Yeah. I still have, the vineyard is anywhere but neutral. Actually, I was talking to one of the vineyard owners of one of our wonderful, great vineyards, and for the first year they're in the black, and they've been going at it for about 7 or 8 years. So it takes that long to get into the black.
Well, I'm excited for you.
Thanks. So that's definitely going to be 4 years.
I mean,
plus.
I'm excited about the guts and butts things, but the wine I'm really excited about.
Well,
all right. Final 3. Best advice you've ever been given.
don't plant a vineyard. Well, the axiom in the wine industry is the way to end up with a small fortune in the wine industry is start with a large one. But of course, I didn't follow that advice.
No.
And then to make it worse, there's a joke in the industry. What's the difference between a case of Syrah and a case of gonorrhea?
Oh, God. What?
You can get rid of the case of gonorrhea.
Oh, man. That's bad.
So I really blew it on that. So the best advice I didn't take.
Okay. Did you have any really good advice in medical school? Was there ever someone that gave you something, words to live by?
I can't say there was one individual. There are people that stand out. I had an anatomy professor, Mr. Munson, Dr. Munson, I should say. There was a virology professor, Dr. Plummer. There's a few people that stood out, not with advice, but just inspirational people.
I like that.
That were inspirational.
Okay. If you ever left this place, Southern Oregon, what would you miss the most? What would bring you back here?
Boy, what would I miss the most? My friends. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my friends here. I'd have to move them all up to Portland.
You would. You guys.
We're all going to mass move. No, that's not going to happen.
You have a good crew here. You have a good support group.
Really, we have a wonderful life here. Life is fantastic here.
It's a good place to be, isn't it?
And we were dreading the smoke. We had a terrible summer. Mm-hmm. We really had a terrible summer. Mm-hmm. And despite that, you hear about all the other environmental disasters that have occurred, all the hurricanes and the tropical storms and the flooding and everything that's gone on elsewhere in the country. I think we did okay.
I know.
I'll take the fire over what's happened. And
same here. And the drive-in to work where the colors are so beautiful right now. And
it's magnificent.
I know.
Yeah, we did lose a lot of summer.
We did.
But if that's the worst, that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And maybe a tough question for you, but if you were given a final meal and a final drink, some of my other guests have done courses and multiple drinks, but hey, it's your final meal. What would it look like? Well,
my final meal, boy, that is a really tough question. I love fish. I love fresh ahi. That's fantastic. It's hard to get it local. It's not a local fish. So,
right.
But when you're in Hawaii and you're in other tropical places, boy, oh boy, I just could eat ahi. I'd probably have mercury poisoning, but I could eat it every day 3 times a day.
Hey, it's your final meal,
yeah,
so
and that's true.
Poison
So it
it
doesn't
up.
matter. Just bring it on. And I would have it with a bottle of Romani Conti Burgundy. Unfortunately, they're about $5,000 a bottle for contemporary vintages, and then older ones would be more. But if it's my final
it's
meal,
your final.
Why not? Just do
That's it. Pocket change on this final
I've only
day.
had that once, and it was an old dead bottle, so I'm still waiting to experience that.
And it was amazing?
No, it was old and dead.
Oh, old and dead. I see.
Dead.
Okay.
Yeah, we bought it beyond its peak. It already had turned, and we didn't pay much money for it because everybody else knew it was old and dead.
That still hurts, though.
Yeah, but we did taste other wines by that winery, Romani Conti, Domaine de la Romani Conti, but not that vineyard Romani Conti. So.
Okay, I like it. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes and you like it, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps other people find us. We are also on Google Play. And please check out the video portion of this podcast. It's on ktvl.com. Just click on features and then off script. Once again, Dr. Peter Adesman. Look for Peter William Wine.
Thank you. Yes.
In a store near you.
Hopefully. Soon.
This has been fun.
Thank you.
It's been fun getting to know you. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.